They kicked her. Not because she started a fight, not because she broke any rules, not because she did anything wrong at all. They kicked her because of 5 words she spoke out loud in a room full of people who thought they knew better. My mom's a Navy SEAL. That's all it took. 5 words from a 12-year-old girl sitting in a middle school cafeteria on a Tuesday evening in March. And the room turned on her like wolves on wounded prey. They called her a liar, mocked her to her face, laughed until their sides hurt, and then their son kicked her in the shin hard enough to leave a mark that would still be visible 3 days later. They thought no one was watching. They thought no one would come. But then the door opened, and the woman they said didn't exist stepped into that hallway. She didn't raise her voice, didn't break anything, didn't even blink. But what she did next would change how that school treated her daughter forever. And it would teach a room full of veterans something they should have learned a long time ago. Before we show you the moment a retired Marine realized who he just called a liar and how this Navy SEAL mother reclaimed her daughter's dignity in complete silence, you need to understand something. This story isn't about revenge, it's about precision. The overhead fluorescent lights buzz faintly in the multi-purpose room of Lincoln Middle School, casting that institutional glow over plastic folding chairs and coffee-stained printouts from the PTA. It was 17:30 hours, 5:30 in the evening for everyone who'd never worn a uniform. The meeting was supposed to start at 1800, but nobody seemed to mind that they were already running behind schedule. Parents filtered in slowly, oversized purses, tired siblings dragging their feet, thinly veiled expectations hanging in the air like humidity before a storm. Paper name tags clung to polo shirts and cardigans. Someone near the back was pouring lukewarm lemonade into styrofoam cups, the kind that would be half crushed and forgotten by the end of the night. This was Veteran Family Recognition Night, a quarterly tradition at Lincoln Middle to honor the military families in their community. A nice gesture, well-intentioned, the kind of thing that looks good in the school newsletter. But tonight, intention and reality were about to collide. Paige Hartley sat in the far left corner of the room, legs crossed tightly at the ankles, back straight, even though the metal chair dug into her spine. She was 12 years old, small for her age, with dark blonde hair pulled into a tight ponytail that made her look even younger than she was. A manila folder lay flat across her lap, gripped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her eyes flicked toward the door. Once, twice, again. Still no sign of her mom. Paige hadn't eaten much since lunch, but her stomach wasn't empty. It was full of something heavier than hunger. Pressure. The kind that builds behind your eyes when you're trying not to cry in public. Around her, other students beamed under the glow of parental pride. One girl whispered loudly to her friend about how her dad had flown in just for this event. Another boy gestured toward his father's camouflage uniform, still crisp and catching looks from every corner of the room. Everywhere Paige looked, someone had someone. She just had a folder. A cluster of adults occupied the center right table. 4 parents who clearly knew each other too well. 2 of them were former Marines, broad-chested men with military haircuts that hadn't changed in 30 years. Their wives were louder than necessary, laughing at half-funny stories about base politics and deployment cycles, and whatever administrative stunt the school had tried to pull last year. The kind of people who treated a PTA meeting like a command briefing. At the head of that table sat Colonel Garrett Brennan, 51 years old, retired Marine Force Recon, 25 years of service, Desert Storm veteran. His jacket was covered in patches and pins, each one a story he'd told 100 times. His wife Victoria sat beside him. Perfectly styled hair, expensive watch, the kind of confidence that comes from being married to someone who expects deference. Their son Travis leaned back in his chair 2 seats over. 16 years old, linebacker build, the kind of kid who'd never been told no by anyone who mattered. Their daughter Natalie sat scrolling through her phone, bored, waiting for this whole thing to be over. Garrett glanced across the room and his eyes landed on Paige sitting alone. No parent beside her. He nudged his wife and tilted his head in Paige's direction. Victoria followed his gaze and smiled, not kindly. "Looks like someone got stood up again," she said, not quietly. The man next to Garrett snorted into his coffee. "Or her mom's stuck in traffic from wherever imaginary parents drive in from our..." Another voice added. Scattered chuckles rippled through their group. Paige didn't respond. She didn't even look over. Her fingers just tightened slightly on the folder. She'd heard this before. Different words, same message. You don't belong here. The teacher at the front of the room clapped her hands together with an awkward smile. Ms. Rebecca Thornton, 53 years old, 26 years teaching middle school. Well-meaning but chronically overwhelmed by everything from budget cuts to parent egos. Okay, everyone, if we could all take our seats, we'll go ahead and begin our quarterly Veteran Family Recognition event. She smiled too widely. Students, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You're all very brave for sitting through this. Polite laughter. Paige didn't move. She sat straighter. Her eyes flicked to the door one more time. Still nothing. But she knew her mom was coming. She always came. Sometimes late, sometimes at the last possible second, but never missing. Paige held on to that knowledge like it was body armor no one else could see. Ms. Thornton began calling names like roll call, but for parents instead of students. She'd prepared a whole script about community building and honoring service, about how tonight was a chance to remind everyone that they were all part of the same team. Paige didn't feel like part of any team. Not right now. One by one, the kids stood and proudly announced the obvious. I'm Aiden Harper. That's my dad, Captain Harper. He served 2 tours in Iraq. Applause, genuine smiles. I'm Zoe Williams. My mom's Lieutenant Williams Air Force. She works in logistics. More applause. I'm Marcus Thorne. My parents are over there. Dad's Army Reserve. Nods of approval. Easy recognition for simply showing up. Then it was Paige's turn. Thornton looked her way with a gentle, almost pitying expression. Paige, would you like to go ahead? Paige stood slowly. The folder remained in one hand. Her voice didn't waver, but it wasn't loud either. Just clear. Factual. My name is Paige Hartley. My mom is Commander Catherine Vance. She's running late tonight. She serves with Naval Special Warfare Development Group. The room went quiet, but not the kind of silence that respects what was just said. It was the kind that pauses mid-breath, then shifts into something sharper, meaner. Garrett Brennan chuckled under his breath, low but loud enough to carry. Victoria raised her eyebrows and leaned toward the woman beside her. DevGru, she whispered. That's SEAL teams, isn't it? Miss Thornton blinked rapidly. Oh, well, I'm sure she'll be here soon, Paige. But the comment had already landed like a stone in still water. Wait, Garrett said, louder now. He wasn't laughing anymore. He was leaning forward, elbows on the table, looking directly at Paige. Did you just say your mom's a SEAL? Paige met his eyes. Yes, sir. Victoria tilted her head with exaggerated sympathy. Sweetheart, there are no women in SEAL teams. I think maybe you're confused about what your mom does. Another parent chimed in from across the room. She probably works on base administration, maybe. Those jobs are important, too. Garrett shook his head slowly, still staring at Paige. Kid, I respect what you're trying to do here. Honoring your mom's service. But claiming she's a SEAL operator, that's not a thing. And frankly, it's disrespectful to the men who actually earned that trident. Paige's jaw tightened. Her voice stayed calm. She is a SEAL. She's an operator. Travis snorted from his seat. Next, she's going to say her mom parachutes into war zones and defuses bombs. Laughter erupted. Not from everyone, but from enough people that it felt like the whole room. Sit down. Thornton held up her hands, trying to regain control. Okay, let's all just... But Garrett wasn't done. He stood now, walking slowly toward Paige's table. Not aggressive, just confident. The way men move when they're used to being right. Paige, he said, voice careful choosing his words. I served 25 years in the Marine Corps. I know how this works. Women can serve. Women can do incredible things in the military. But SEAL teams, that's a different level. It requires a physical standard that... He stopped himself. It's just not something women are built for. So either your mom told you a story to make you feel special, or you misunderstood what she does. Either way, it's okay to admit that. Paige opened her folder with shaking hands. She pulled out a photograph. Her mom in desert camouflage, face clear, standing in front of a helicopter. Other faces in the photo were blurred, redacted. She held it up. Garrett took it, examined it closely. His wife leaned over his shoulder. Could be photoshopped, Victoria said dismissively. Could be a costume, Garrett added. You can buy BDUs at any surplus store. Paige pulled out another page. A certificate, Bronze Star, awarded to Lieutenant Commander Catherine Vance for actions under fire in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, 2014. Garrett stared at it longer this time. His expression shifted just slightly, but then he shook his head. This could be forged. I'm not saying it is, but anyone with a printer and some creativity, she's not lying. Paige's voice cracked just slightly. She's really a SEAL. Garrett handed the papers back. Honey, I'm sure your mom does important work, but this, he gestured at the folder, this isn't real, and the sooner you accept that the easier things will be. He turned and walked back to his seat. The room resumed its low hum of conversation. A few parents whispered to each other. Some looked at Paige with pity, others with thinly veiled annoyance. Ms. Thornton cleared her throat. Let's move on, shall we? Next we have... But Paige wasn't listening anymore. She sat down slowly, clutching her folder against her chest. Her throat felt tight. Her eyes burned. Not because she doubted her mom, but because no one else believed her. The meeting broke for a 10-minute stretch at 1845. A chance for parents to refill their coffee, for kids to escape into the hallway that connected the multipurpose room to the main classroom wing. The murmur of adult conversation spilled into the corridor, mixing with the clatter of lockers and the squeak of sneakers on old floor wax. A few students wandered toward the vending machines. Others checked their phones in corners where teachers couldn't see. Paige slipped out quietly. She didn't want coffee, didn't want snacks. She just wanted space. She found a bench halfway down the hall near the lost and found bin across from a poster about anti-bullying that felt more like decoration than policy. She sat down, pulled her knees up slightly, and tucked her folder against her chest. If she made herself small enough, maybe the attention would fade. It didn't. The Brennan family stepped into the hallway with the kind of loud confidence people use when they're sure no one will correct them. Garrett's voice carried as he talked to another dad about base contracts and military budgets. Victoria laughed too loudly at something that wasn't funny. Travis and Natalie trailed behind, talking to each other, pointing at things that didn't matter. Garrett spotted Paige immediately. There's our storyteller, he said, not cruelly, almost gently, like he was talking to a confused child. Victoria smirked. Still no mom, I see. Maybe she's swimming here from Coronado and got tired halfway. Travis laughed under his breath as they approached. Paige stood. She intended to walk away, to find another hallway, another bench, anywhere else, but Victoria shifted just enough to block her path. It looked accidental. It wasn't. Whoa there, sweetheart, Victoria said. Tone sweet, eyes sharp. No need to rush off. Paige's pulse quickened. I just need to... Garrett crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to eye level. Let's hear it again. Just for us. Say your mom's a SEAL. Go ahead. Paige's voice came out barely above a whisper. She is. Travis flicked the edge of her folder with 2 fingers. Casual. Careless. The folder tumbled from Paige's hands. Papers fanned across the tile floor like feathers scattering in wind. The photograph of her mom, the Bronze Star certificate, a progress report from school, a permission slip, all of it spread across the dirty hallway floor. Oops, Travis said flatly. Clumsy. Paige dropped to her knees immediately. She gathered the papers with small shaking hands. Didn't ask for help. Didn't look up. Her fingers touched the Bronze Star certificate first. The paper was heavier than normal printer stock. Official. Real. She'd watched her mother lock it in a safe every night. Had asked once why she didn't frame it, put it on display like other families did with military honors. Because it's not about the medal, Catherine had said. It's about the 6 men who went home that day. Paige hadn't understood then. She was only 7. Now kneeling on a dirty hallway floor while strangers laughed at her, she understood perfectly. Her mother didn't need validation, didn't need anyone to believe her. The mission was the only thing that mattered, but Paige needed them to believe. Needed someone besides Master Chief Cross to look at her without pity or doubt. She was 12 years old and so tired of being the girl whose mom worked at the base or did something classified, or probably just processes paperwork. Her mom had saved 6 Marines with 2 impossible shots, and these people were calling her a liar. The photograph slipped from her hands again. Her father smiled up at her from the tile floor. Young, alive, wearing the trident he'd earned before Paige was born, before the IED turned him into a memory and a folded flag. She'd never met him, but she knew his story, and her mother's. And now her own was being written in scattered papers and sneaker marks on her shin. Garrett stood over her, arms crossed. If your mom was really a SEAL, you wouldn't fall apart this easy. Victoria added, maybe she's supply staff. Kids exaggerate. It's normal. Paige tried to stand, but Natalie drifted into her path, smiling thin and cold. Say it again, Natalie demanded. Say your mom's a Navy SEAL. I don't want to, Paige said quietly. Garrett crouched again, invading her space. Because it's a lie, kid. It's not, Paige whispered. Travis nudged her shin with his sneaker. Light, pointed, testing boundaries. Paige flinched. She didn't cry out, just pulled back, slightly breath-catching. No one from the staff noticed. The hallway was a blind spot. Doors closed, adults distracted. One of those rare corners where cruelty could grow without witnesses. Paige hugged her folder to her chest and whispered again, barely audible. Please stop. They laughed, all of them, not loud, just enough to make sure she heard. And somewhere down that hallway, footsteps echoed. Quiet, steady, deliberate. Someone was coming. Paige crouched on the cold tile floor, gathering her scattered papers one by one. Careful not to let her hands shake. Careful not to show her face. The page with her science grade was creased now, folded at an ugly angle. She tried smoothing it against her knee. It didn't help. Travis still stood over her phone in hand, recording. Hey, he said, again voice low, taunting. You going to cry or salute us? Paige didn't look up. That's when he moved, a deliberate step forward. Not hard enough to knock her over. Not brutal, but aimed, planned. His sneaker connected with her shin just above the ankle. A calculated snap of force, enough to leave a mark, enough to make a point. Paige's elbow struck the edge of the locker as she recoiled. One more paper slipped from her hands and skittered across the floor. She gasped, sharp and sudden. But she didn't scream. The sound echoed anyway. Garrett grinned from a few feet away. If she was really a SEAL's kid, she'd take a hit better than that. Victoria chimed in with mock concern. Maybe lying makes you weak. Laughter followed. Even Natalie smirked, arms folded, watching like this was entertainment. Paige sat frozen, legs pulled in folder, clutched against her chest like a life preserver. The pain in her shin bloomed fast, dull heat spreading outward. She pressed the sleeve of her jacket to her eyes. Stop, she whispered. Please stop. But that only fueled them. Victoria stepped closer. Or what page are you going to call in the SEALs going to tell your imaginary mom to rappel through the ceiling? Another chuckle, another nudge of a shoe. Not a kick this time, just a mock push, like she was a piece of luggage in the way. From somewhere down the corridor, a student passed and kept walking. Eyes locked ahead, ears pretending not to hear. Then Travis raised his phone higher, green lit, camera pointed directly at Paige's face. Let's get this on video, he said, grinning. Caption it, when fake SEAL kids create. Paige curled forward slightly, turning away, but she didn't shield herself, didn't want to give them that satisfaction. She just wanted the night to end. Behind them, footsteps sounded, quiet, steady. Someone noticed the shift in the air first. Not because of volume, but because the rhythm changed. The door at the end of the hallway eased open. No announcement, no fanfare. But Travis's phone slowly lowered. Natalie turned first. The parents didn't see it yet, but Paige did. A figure stood in the open doorway, framed by dull hallway light, motionless. Commander Catherine Vance was home. Catherine Vance didn't need to slam the door. She did not need to shout. She just stepped inside. The hallway temperature seemed to drop, not literally, but the kind of cold that comes when predators enter a space designed for prey. Every person in that corridor felt it without understanding why. Catherine had run 12 miles that morning in soft sand, logged 200 rounds at the range, spent 90 minutes in combatives training with operators half her age who still couldn't pin her. She'd showered in 4 minutes, dressed in 3, and driven here with the kind of controlled urgency that came from years of responding to crisis. She'd known something was wrong the moment Paige's text came through at 1840. Not the words, the timing. Paige never texted during events, never wanted to seem needy or dramatic. One word, mom. That was all. But Catherine had learned to read volumes in silence. She'd parked 2 blocks away, approached on foot, entered through the side door near the gym because the main entrance would put her in the multi-purpose room first, and she'd needed to see the hallway, needed to assess the threat before engaging. Now she was looking at it. 4 adults, 2 teenagers, her daughter on the floor, papers everywhere, a phone recording, combat assessment complete, overwhelming force authorized, hair still damp from a post-training rinse pulled back into a tight bun, civilian workout gear clinging to lean, defined arms, no insignia. No boots, no uniform, just a plain charcoal gray zip hoodie, navy blue tactical pants, and the kind of eyes that never stop scanning a room. She saw her daughter first. Not the bruises, not the papers scattered across the floor, not the phone recording. Just Paige, sitting against the lockers, lips pressed tight, one sleeve damp where she'd wiped her eyes. Catherine didn't blink, didn't ask for context, didn't need any. She moved, not rushed, not slow, measured, controlled. She crouched next to Paige and placed one hand gently on her shoulder. Hey, she said quietly, voice soft, steady. You okay? Paige nodded once, but her chin trembled. Catherine's voice dropped even lower. What happened? Paige whispered, barely audible. They said you weren't real. Catherine's jaw set, but she didn't react. She glanced down, saw the shoe mark on Paige's shin, the scattered pages, the crumpled folder. Are you hurt? Paige gave the faintest nod. Just my leg. It's okay. Catherine exhaled once through her nose, slow, controlled. Then she stood. Everything that followed happened in silence. She reached down, collected the creased pages with precise fingers, tapped them into a neat stack against her thigh, slipped them carefully into Paige's folder, handed it back to her daughter gently with one hand. Then she stepped forward. It wasn't loud, it wasn't even sharp, it was just controlled, which made it more threatening than yelling ever could have been. Catherine's voice came out level and soft. Which one of you put hands on my daughter? The hallway shrank. No one answered. Garrett stiffened but didn't speak. Travis tucked his phone behind his back like a sixth grader caught cheating. Victoria instinctively stepped behind her husband. Catherine asked again, not louder, not angrier, just clearer. I asked a question. Which one of you touched my daughter? Still silence. But now the pressure had changed. Catherine wasn't leaning forward, wasn't posturing. She just stood there, hands by her sides, shoulders squared, and somehow it was more threatening than yelling ever could have been. Garrett stepped forward, half a pace, trying to recover the room, trying to reclaim control. Look, he said carefully, this is a misunderstanding. No one meant anything. Catherine turned her head slightly, her eyes locked on him. No one meant anything. Then why is my daughter sitting on the floor with a bruise and a torn folder? He flinched. She wasn't just a mom, and now they were realizing it. Too late. Garrett lifted his chin, trying to reclaim ground. He was a big man, broad-shouldered, arms folded just wide enough to suggest authority. His voice was steady, but the edges were too polished, overcompensating. Ma'am, he began, this is a misunderstanding. Nobody was trying to hurt your kid. Catherine didn't blink. She has a boot mark on her shin. Victoria jumped in quickly, laughing awkwardly. They were teasing. Kids' roughhouse. You know how it is. Catherine stepped forward, not aggressively, just deliberately. So you're saying the bruise is accidental? She was exaggerating, Travis muttered, from behind his father. Catherine ignored him. She looked at Garrett again. You're in uniform. Garrett straightened slightly, proudly. Retired Colonel, 25 years, Marine Corps Force Recon. Catherine's voice stayed flat. Then you should have known better. The words landed like a slap. Victoria bristled. Hold on, who even are you? Catherine kept her voice measured. I'm her mother. We got that part, Victoria snapped. But what's your angle, showing up late and playing tough? Victoria's friend chimed in. What are you, Army Reserve? You don't get to bark orders at us. Catherine's jaw moved just slightly, like she was adjusting a lock inside her own body, but her tone didn't change. She looked back at Travis. "You kicked her." He shook his head quickly, eyes darting. "She bumped into me." Catherine crouched slowly beside Paige again. Gently, she pulled up the cuff of her daughter's jeans. A red mark bloomed across the front of her shin. Clean, horizontal, unmistakably shaped. Catherine stood again, folder still in one hand. "That's a shoe tread." Garrett moved closer now, not violently but with intent. He stepped into her personal space, puffed out his chest. The classic move, intimidation through size. "You need to calm down, ma'am." Catherine didn't step back, didn't flinch. She simply tilted her head a few degrees. Her voice remained smooth as glass. "Are you trying to intimidate me?" "No one's doing that," he said, voice rising slightly. "Because if you are," Catherine continued, "you should stop now. You're already behind." There was no threat in it, no raised fist, no flexed stance. But something in the way she said it made everyone in that hallway feel smaller. Victoria tried again. "Lady, we didn't know she was your kid." Catherine's eyes didn't move. "You shouldn't need to." And for a moment, the entire hallway felt like it belonged to her. Garrett took another half step forward. His voice dropped to that stiff warning register soldiers use when they want to claim control without actually knowing what they're doing. "You need to lower your tone, lady." Catherine didn't move, didn't blink, didn't shift her stance. "Wrong audience," she replied. That was when he made the mistake. He reached out, hand flat, fingers just barely brushing her arm like he meant to usher her back. Not forceful, not violent, but physical. Catherine moved. It wasn't explosive. It wasn't showy. It was efficient. Her right foot pivoted behind his. Her left hand caught his wrist in one fluid motion. His own momentum betrayed him. She didn't throw him. She guided him, off-center, off-balance. His hips slammed into the lockers with a thud that echoed down the corridor. Gasps spilled from the doorway behind them. Natalie stepped backward fast. Travis froze, unsure whether to reach for his dad or run. Victoria screamed. "What the hell was that?" She lunged forward like she meant to grab Catherine's shoulder, but Catherine sidestepped without effort. One lean pivot. The woman stumbled past and had to grab the wall to stop herself from falling. Travis stepped in now, fists clenched, red-faced. But before he could move, Catherine turned, palm outward, stopping him with nothing but position. "Try it," she said softly. He didn't. He couldn't. Garrett groaned and pushed himself upright, breath catching. He stared at her, wide-eyed, confused. "Who the hell are you?" he rasped. Catherine released his wrist with mechanical precision and stepped back. Her voice was calm, matter of fact. "Lieutenant Commander Catherine Vance, United States Navy, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. 20 years on record, currently attached to SEAL Training Command." Silence swallowed the hallway. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to dim under the weight of what she just said. Victoria's mouth opened, but no words came. Travis's hands dropped to his sides like he just realized they didn't matter anymore. Garrett stared, processing, recalculating everything he thought he knew. Catherine didn't gloat, didn't sneer, didn't puff her chest. She simply turned, walked back to her daughter, and crouched beside her again. "You okay?" she asked. Paige nodded, staring, not in fear, in awe. Because the woman who walked into that hallway wasn't the myth they'd all mocked. She was real, and now they all knew. A door burst open behind them. Fast. Urgent. Miss Rebecca Thornton stepped out, first clipboard still in hand, her practiced smile already gone. She'd heard the impact, heard the gap, and the second she saw who was standing where her pace changed from casual to urgent. Principal Robert Hayes followed right behind her. 58 years old, 32 years in education. He'd seen fights before, seen parent confrontations, seen every flavor of school drama that existed. But the tableau in front of him now made him stop mid-stride. Garrett Brennan against the lockers, one hand on his ribs, face flushed. His wife Victoria leaning against the opposite wall, breathing hard. Their son Travis standing frozen with his phone still clutched behind his back. And a woman he'd never seen before crouched calmly next to Paige Hartley, checking her daughter's shin with the clinical precision of a field medic. Behind Hayes came Deputy Cole Warren, school resource officer, 51 years old. 23 years with the Sheriff's Department, former Navy. He'd served on a destroyer in the late 90s, seen 2 deployments, then transitioned to law enforcement when his knees gave out. Warren took one look at the scene and his training kicked in immediately. Everyone step back. His voice cut through the hallway like a blade. Separate. Now. Catherine stood slowly, hands visible, non-threatening posture. She'd been through enough de-escalation training to know exactly how this looked from the outside. Garrett pushed off the locker, still catching his breath. His voice came out louder than he intended, angrier. She attacked me. I want her arrested. Warren held up one hand, calm but firm. Sir, I need everyone to stop talking right now. Master Chief Dalton Cross appeared in the doorway behind them, 71 years old. Retired SEAL, he'd served from the tail end of the Cold War through Desert Storm, then trained the next generation until his knees finally gave out in 2010. He lived 2 doors down from Catherine, and Paige had been checking in on the girl since she was 6 years old. He'd followed the Brennan family into the hallway 5 minutes ago, standing just out of sight, watching, waiting to see if he'd need to step in. He hadn't needed to. Now he spoke, voice low, authoritative. Deputy Warren, I witnessed the entire exchange. Warren turned, recognized Cross immediately. They'd crossed paths at veteran events before. Master Chief? Cross stepping forward. He grabbed her first. She defended herself. Proportional response. Clean. Garrett's head snapped toward Cross. Dalton, what the hell, you're seriously taking her side? Cross didn't even look at him. He kept his eyes on Warren. I'm not taking sides. I'm stating facts. He initiated physical contact. She responded, self-defense. Victoria found her voice, shrill, desperate. That's not what happened. She came in here aggressive, threatening our son. Catherine's voice cut through, calm, measured. Your son kicked my daughter. That's assault and battery of a minor. Everything I've done since entering this hallway has been in response to that. Ms. Thornton stammered, trying to regain some semblance of control. Let's all just, everyone calm down and we can talk about this in the office. Warren raised his hand again. No, we're doing this by the book. He looked directly at Catherine. Ma'am, I need you to identify yourself. Catherine reached slowly into the front pocket of her hoodie, movements deliberate, non-threatening. She produced a black leather credential wallet. She opened it. 4 credentials, military ID, DoD access card, NavSpec war badge, top secret clearance. She handed the wallet to Warren without a word. Warren examined each credential carefully. His expression shifted, just slightly, but enough that everyone watching could see it. He'd spent 4 years in the Navy. He knew what legitimate DoD credentials looked like, the weight of the card stock, the embedded security features, the holographic seals. These weren't fake. He looked up at Catherine, met her eyes. Commander Vance. She nodded once. Warren handed the wallet back. His tone changed, respectful. Understood, ma'am. Garrett stared. What is that? Warren turned to him. She's confirmed active duty Naval Special Warfare Command. That's impossible, Victoria said, but her voice had lost its edge. Now it just sounded confused. Catherine slipped the wallet back into her pocket. Deputy Warren, I'd like to file a formal incident report. My daughter was verbally harassed, had her property destroyed, and was physically assaulted. There's video evidence. She looked at Travis, his phone. Travis's face went white. Warren extended his hand. Son, I need your phone, now. Travis looked at his father. Garrett said nothing. Travis handed over the phone, unlocked it. Warren swiped through the recent videos, found it, pressed play. The audio was clear. Travis's voice taunting Paige. The sound of paper scattering. Paige's quiet plea to stop. Then the unmistakable thud of a kick connecting. Paige's gasp. Warren stopped the video, his jaw tightened. This is evidence. I'm confiscating this. You can't just, Victoria started. Warren cut her off. Ma'am, this video shows your son committing assault on school property. I absolutely can confiscate it. Principal Hayes finally found his voice. Everyone staff room, now. We're taking formal statements from all parties. Garrett opened his mouth to protest, then stopped, because he was staring at Catherine again. Really looking at her this time. Not at her clothes, not at her gender. At her face, something clicked. His expression changed, confusion giving way to recognition, then disbelief. then something that looked almost like fear. "Wait," he said slowly. "Vance. Catherine Vance." Catherine met his eyes, said nothing. Garrett took a step closer, not aggressive this time, cautious. "Helmand Province, 2014. Catherine's expression didn't change. Garrett's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "You were there. You were the—" He stopped, looked at Cross, then back at Catherine. "You were the widow." The hallway went silent again. But this time it was different. This wasn't the silence of mockery. This was the silence of realization. Catherine still said nothing. Garrett sat down heavily on the bench Paige had been sitting on minutes before. He put his head in his hands. "Oh God," he muttered. "I called you a liar." Victoria looked between her husband and Catherine, completely lost. "Garrett, what are you talking about?" Garrett didn't answer her. He just sat there, shoulders slumped, the fight completely gone out of him. Cross spoke quietly. "Deputy, if I may, I think you need to hear what he's talking about." Warren nodded. "I'm listening." Cross looked at Catherine. She gave the slightest nod. "Permission." Cross turned back to Warren. The old SEAL's voice carried the weight of decades. He'd trained operators since the mid-90s, seen the best and worst of what warfare demanded. He'd been there when the Navy started quietly testing whether women could handle the physical and mental brutality of special operations selection, not as a social experiment, as a tactical necessity. Catherine Vance had been one of 5 women in that first classified pilot program. Only she made it through. Cross had pushed her harder than any male candidate, not because he doubted her, because he knew the teams would eat her alive if she showed up unprepared. She'd earned every bruise, every sleepless night, every impossible standard he'd set. And then she'd exceeded them. When her husband was killed, Cross had watched her shut down emotionally and sharpen operationally. He'd seen combat veterans break under less. But Catherine compartmentalized grief like she compartmentalized pain during Hell Week, locked it away. Focused on the mission. October 12th had been her breaking point and her redemption. Cross had been in the Tactical Operations Center that day, monitoring multiple elements across Helmand Province. When the call came in about the PIN Marine Squad, he'd immediately checked available assets. Catherine was the only sniper with line of sight. He'd run the numbers himself. 1,249 meters, wind 15 to 20 miles per hour, temperature affecting ballistics, elevation differential, target moving unpredictably behind partial cover. The math said it was impossible, but he'd also trained her, knew what she was capable of when everything else fell away. October 12, 2014, Helmand Province, Afghanistan. A Marine rifle squad was pinned down by a Taliban sniper operating from a ridgeline at approximately 1,200 meters from their position. They'd been taking fire for 40 minutes. 2 wounded, running low on ammunition. Air support was 17 minutes out. He paused. Commander Vance was on overwatch from an adjacent position. The shot wasn't just difficult, it was by most standards impossible. 1,249 meters, high crosswind, elevated target. She took the shot, eliminated the spotter. 11 seconds later, she took a second shot, eliminated the primary sniper who'd repositioned. Both confirmed kills. The Marines were extracted without further casualties. Warren stared at Catherine. 1,249 meters. Catherine's voice was quiet. 1,249. Laser rangefinder confirmed post-action. Garrett looked up. His eyes were red. Sergeant Castillo. That was his squad. Catherine nodded once. "First squad, 2nd platoon, Echo Company." "He told me," Garrett said, voice breaking slightly. "He said an angel saved them. Said the shot was impossible. Said whoever made it was the best operator he'd ever seen." He looked at Catherine. "He never knew your name. It was classified. They just called you the widow." Catherine's jaw tightened just slightly. "My husband had been killed 7 months prior, IED, Northern Helmand. I kept his call sign." The weight of that settled over the hallway like snow. Victoria was staring at her husband now. "Garrett, are you saying she's—" Garrett nodded. "She's the real deal. Everything she said. Everything her daughter said." He looked at Paige. "Kid, God, I'm so sorry." Paige didn't respond. She just looked at her mother. Catherine placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, gentle, protective. Then she looked at Principal Hayes. "I want a formal incident report. statements from all witnesses. That video preserved as evidence, and I want the school's proposed action plan in writing by Monday morning. Hayes nodded quickly. Absolutely, Commander. We'll handle this appropriately. Catherine's eyes moved to Travis. The boy couldn't meet her gaze. You kicked my daughter. Do you understand what you did? Travis's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, ma'am. Do you understand why it was wrong? He nodded, still not looking up. Catherine's voice didn't rise, didn't sharpen. Then you'll have an opportunity to make it right, but not tonight. Tonight you answer for what you did. She turned to Warren. Deputy, I'm not pressing criminal charges at this time, but I want this documented. If there's any retaliation, any further contact with my daughter, I will pursue full prosecution. Are we clear? Warren nodded. Crystal clear, ma'am. Catherine looked at Paige. Can you walk? Paige nodded. Then let's go give our statements, and then we're going home. They walked down the hallway together, Catherine's hand still on Paige's shoulder. Master Chief Cross followed a few paces behind, a silent honor guard. Behind them, the Brennan family stood in the wreckage of their own assumptions. And for the first time in a very long time, Garrett Brennan understood what it felt like to be completely, utterly wrong. The staff room at Lincoln Middle School was designed for collaboration. Round tables, motivational posters about teamwork, a whiteboard still covered in notes from a curriculum meeting earlier that week. Tonight it felt like an interrogation room. Principal Hayes had separated everyone into different corners. Catherine and Paige sat at one table with Deputy Warren. Master Chief Cross sat nearby, still serving as witness. The Brennan family occupied another table across the room with Ms. Thornton, who looked like she wanted to be anywhere else on earth. Warren had his notepad out. Official, by the book. Commander Vance, he began, I need you to walk me through what happened from the moment you entered the building. Start to finish. Take your time. Catherine's voice was clinical, precise. No emotion, just facts. I arrived at the school at 1847 hours. I was delayed due to training obligations at Coronado. I entered through the main entrance, proceeded to the multipurpose room. The meeting was in progress. I observed my daughter sitting alone. I took a seat in the back to avoid disruption. She paused. At approximately 1852, the meeting broke for intermission. I watched my daughter exit to the hallway. I waited 30 seconds, then followed. When I entered the corridor, I observed the following: my daughter on the floor gathering scattered papers. 4 adults standing over her. 2 juveniles, one of whom was holding a phone in recording position. My daughter appeared distressed. I observed a visible contusion forming on her right shin. Warren wrote quickly, what happened next? I approached my daughter, conducted a preliminary welfare check. She confirmed she'd been kicked. I collected her belongings, returned them to her, then addressed the adults present. I asked who had touched my daughter. No one responded initially. Mr. Brennan then stated it was a misunderstanding. I indicated that my daughter had visible injury and asked again. He approached me, entered my personal space, made verbal statements indicating I should lower my tone. Warren looked up. Then he initiated physical contact, placed his hand on my left forearm. I perceived this as an attempt to physically move me or restrain me. I responded with a defensive technique. Kotegaeshi wrist control, then with Tai Sabaki pivot. He lost balance and made contact with the lockers. I immediately released him and stepped back. Mrs. Brennan then moved toward me aggressively. I sidestepped. She stumbled but was not injured. At that point, you and Principal Hayes arrived. Warren finished writing, looked at Cross. Master Chief, does that match what you observed? Cross nodded. Completely. I was approximately 15 feet away. I had followed the Brennan family into the hallway because I observed their son harassing Miss Hartley during the meeting. I witnessed Mr. Brennan initiate physical contact. Commander Vance's response was controlled, proportional, and defensive in nature. No excessive force, no intent to injure. Warren turned to Paige, his voice softened. Paige, can you tell me what happened before your mom arrived? Paige's voice was quiet but steady. Travis kicked me. They were all saying my mom wasn't a SEAL, that I was lying. Travis knocked my folder out of my hands. The papers went everywhere. I tried to pick them up. Then he kicked my shin. Did he say anything when he kicked you? Paige thought for a moment. He said if my mom was so tough, I should be able to take a hit better. Warren wrote that down. In the video on his phone, do you know what he was recording? He said he wanted to get me crying on video for TikTok. Warren's expression darkened. He looked at Hayes. We need to preserve that video as evidence. I've already secured the phone. I'll need parental consent to review the full contents. Hayes nodded. You'll have it. Across the room, Garrett sat with his head down. Victoria next to him, arms crossed, face tight. Travis looked like he wanted to disappear. Natalie scrolled through her own phone, trying to pretend none of this was happening. Ms. Thornton cleared her throat. Mr. Brennan, I need to ask, did you witness your son kick Paige? Garrett didn't look up. No, we were talking. I didn't see it. But you were present when the confrontation with Commander Vance occurred. He nodded. I was there. And you did initiate physical contact with her. Long pause. Then quietly. Yes. Victoria's head snapped toward him. Garrett, he held up a hand. Victoria, stop. Just stop. She closed her mouth, but her eyes stayed angry. Hayes stood, formal now. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, based on the statements and video evidence I'm implementing, the following actions effective immediately. Travis will be suspended for 5 school days. He will be required to complete a behavioral intervention program. He will issue a formal written apology to Paige, and he will be placed on disciplinary probation for the remainder of the academic year. Victoria started to object. Garrett put a hand on her arm. He earned it, Garrett said quietly. Don't fight this. Travis's voice cracked. Dad, you kicked a 12-year-old girl, Garrett said, voice flat. You recorded it like it was funny. You don't get to complain about consequences. Travis looked down at the table. Hayes continued. Additionally, I'll be recommending to the district that we implement new protocols for how we handle claims about parent occupations. This should never have escalated this way. We failed Paige, and we failed Commander Vance. Catherine spoke for the first time in several minutes. Principal Hayes, I appreciate the action you're taking, but I want to be clear about something. He looked at her. Yes. This isn't about my credentials. This isn't about proving I'm a SEAL. This is about the fact that my daughter told the truth and was punished for it. The truth shouldn't require validation from authority. It should be the default assumption. Hayes nodded slowly. You're right, and that's a culture we need to change. Catherine looked at Paige. You ready to go home? Paige nodded. They stood. Catherine extended her hand to Warren. Deputy, thank you for handling this professionally. Warren shook her hand. Commander, if you need anything else, you have my contact information. She nodded, then turned to Cross. Master Chief, thank you for being there. Cross smiled slightly. Wouldn't be anywhere else. As they walked toward the door, Garrett stood suddenly. Commander Vance. Catherine stopped, turned. Garrett looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. I need to say this. What I did tonight, what I said to your daughter. There's no excuse. I was wrong, completely wrong, and I'm sorry. Catherine studied him for a long moment. Mr. Brennan, you served 25 years. You earned that uniform. But tonight you taught your son that size and volume matter more than truth. You taught him that women can't be warriors. You taught him that when someone challenges your worldview, you can intimidate them into silence. Garrett's face flushed, but he didn't look away. Catherine continued, the question is what you teach him tomorrow, and the day after, and every day after that. She turned and walked out. Paige followed. The door closed behind them with a soft click. In the parking lot, the cool evening air felt like a benediction after the stale fluorescence of the school. Catherine walked Paige to their car, a practical gray sedan that had seen better days but ran reliably. She unlocked it. Paige climbed into the passenger seat. Catherine got behind the wheel but didn't start the engine immediately. They sat in silence for a moment. Mom? Paige's voice was small. Yeah, sweetheart. Are you mad at them? Catherine thought about that. No, not really. Why not? Because they already learned what they needed to. Paige looked at her mother. You didn't yell at them. I didn't have to. Paige was quiet for another moment. That move you did with Mr. Brennan, was that real SEAL training? Catherine smiled slightly. Basic defensive tactics, nothing fancy. He was off balance before I even touched him. Why? Because he was angry. Because he was wrong, and somewhere deep down he knew it. Catherine started the engine, adjusted the mirrors, pulled out of the parking space slowly. As they approached the exit, Catherine slowed the car. Through the window, she could see Garrett Brennan standing near the school entrance, arms folded, watching them leave. He didn't wave, didn't sneer. He simply lowered his head once, a subtle acknowledgement. Catherine didn't return it. She just turned the wheel and drove on. "Mom," Paige said after a few minutes. "Yeah. Next time someone says you're not real, what should I do?" Catherine glanced at her daughter. "Tell the truth, just like you did tonight." "But they didn't believe me." "No, they didn't. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to tell the truth. What they do with it is up to them." Paige nodded slowly, processing. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. The streetlights blurred past. The radio played something soft and instrumental. Finally, Paige spoke again. "Mom?" "Yeah. Thank you for coming." Catherine squeezed her daughter's hand. "Always will, sweetheart. Always." They pulled into their apartment complex 20 minutes later. Master Chief Cross's porch light was on. He was sitting outside waiting. When he saw them pull in, he raised a hand in greeting. Catherine and Paige walked over. "Everything okay?" Cross asked. Catherine nodded. "Formal statements taken. Incident documented. Kids getting suspended." Cross grunted. "Good. He earned it." He looked at Paige. "You okay, kiddo?" Paige nodded. "Yes, sir. Leg hurts a little." Cross reached into his pocket and pulled out an old ice pack, the reusable kind wrapped in a thin towel. "Figured you might need this. 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. Keep the swelling down." Paige took it. "Thank you, Master Chief." He waved a hand. "Go get some rest, both of you." Catherine and Paige went inside. Their apartment was small but clean, functional, military efficient, photos on the walls, Paige's school awards on the fridge, a pair of Catherine's running shoes by the door. Paige sat on the couch and applied the ice pack to her shin. Catherine went to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of water, brought them back. She sat next to her daughter. "You did good tonight," Catherine said. I cried. "Crying's not weakness, it's just emotion." Paige looked at her mom. "You didn't cry?" "I'm older. I've had more practice keeping it inside." "That doesn't make it better." Paige leaned against her mother's shoulder. Catherine put an arm around her. They sat like that for a while, the ice pack slowly warming, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic. Finally, Paige spoke. "Mom, yeah. What happens now?" Catherine thought about that. About Garrett Brennan sitting in that staff room with his world turned upside down. About Travis facing suspension and the reality of consequences. About a school that had failed to protect her daughter and was now scrambling to make it right. "Now," Catherine said quietly, "we see if people can change." "Do you think they will?" "I don't know, but we gave them the chance," Paige nodded. And in the soft light of their small apartment, mother and daughter sat together, safe, whole, and ready for whatever came next. The call came at 6:30 Monday morning. Catherine was already awake 3 miles into her daily run along the beach near Coronado. Her phone buzzed against her arm. She slowed to a walk, checked the screen. "Principal Robert Hayes," she answered. "Commander Vance," his voice was formal, careful. "Commander, I apologize for the early call. I wanted to reach you before the school day started. I have the incident report and proposed action plan ready for your review. Would you be available to meet this morning?" Catherine checked her watch. She had weapons qualifications at 0900. "I can be there at 0745. "That works. Thank you, Commander." She finished her run at a slower pace, mind already shifting through what needed to happen next. This wasn't about revenge. Never had been. But it was about making sure Paige could walk into that school without fear, without having to prove her mother's existence every single day. By the time Catherine showered and changed into civilian clothes, Paige was awake, sitting at their small kitchen table eating cereal. The bruise on her shin had darkened overnight to a deep purple. "How's it feel?" Catherine asked. "Sore, but okay." Catherine poured coffee. "I'm meeting with Principal Hayes this morning. You're staying home today. I'll call the school. Master Chief will check on you while I'm gone." Paige looked up. "Am I in trouble?" "No, but I want to make sure everything's handled before you go back." Paige nodded. Didn't argue. That was one thing military kids learned early. Trust the plan. Catherine arrived at Lincoln Middle at 07:43. The parking lot was mostly empty. A few teachers arriving early. Custodial staff. The building had that hollow echo it always did before students flooded in. Principal Hayes met her at the main entrance. He looked like he hadn't slept much. Dark circles under his eyes. Tie slightly crooked. "Commander, thank you for coming." He led her to his office. A cluttered space. Too many filing cabinets. Student artwork on the walls. A coffee maker in the corner that looked like it had been running continuously since 1995. He handed her a folder. Thick. Official. Catherine opened it. Incident report. 14 pages. Witness statements from Cross Warren and 3 students she hadn't known were watching. Video evidence log with timestamps. Travis Brennan's disciplinary action plan, including mandatory counseling and probation terms. School-wide policy revisions. She read through it methodically, checking every detail, every consequence, every safeguard they'd put in place. When she finished, she looked up. "This is thorough, and it's fair." Hayes nodded. "We take this seriously, Commander. What happened to Paige was unacceptable, and the way we handled her initial claims about your service was frankly discriminatory. We assumed she was lying because we couldn't imagine a woman in your position." Catherine's expression didn't change. "What are you doing to fix that?" He pulled out another document. "New protocols, effective immediately. Anytime a student's claim about a parent's occupation is questioned, we verify through official channels before making any determination. No more assumptions, no more public challenges, and for the staff mandatory training, implicit bias, military family support. We're bringing in consultants from the Base Family Services Center." Catherine studied him. "Mr. Hayes, I appreciate the action you're taking, but I need to know this isn't just about avoiding a lawsuit." He met her eyes. "Commander, I've been in education for 32 years. I've made mistakes, a lot of them. But what happened Friday night?" He stopped, collected himself. "Your daughter sat in that room and told the truth, and we punished her for it. Not officially, but socially, emotionally. We let other parents tear her down because we were too cowardly to verify facts. That's on me, and I'm not okay with them." Catherine nodded slowly. "Then we're on the same page." She signed the acknowledgement form, accepted the formal apology letter, stood to leave. "Commander," Hayes said, "one more thing. We're having a Veterans Day assembly in November. I know it's months away, but would you consider speaking not as a defense of what happened, just as a representative of what service actually looks like?" Catherine considered that. "I'll need to clear it with public affairs. Some things I can talk about, some I can't." "Of course, whatever you're comfortable with." She left the school feeling like something had shifted, not fixed, but moving in the right direction. The weeks rolled forward. Spring edged into early summer. School continued. Paige's bruise faded from purple to yellow to gone. The incident became part of school history rather than current crisis. Travis returned from suspension different, quieter. He'd lost the swagger that had made him dangerous. He joined the Navy JROTC program, started running in the mornings, lost weight, built discipline. The first morning he'd barely made it 2 miles before vomiting into a storm drain. His father watched from the driveway, said nothing, just waited until Travis caught his breath and started running again. Week 2, Travis discovered every muscle could hurt simultaneously. His legs screamed, his core burned, his shoulders ached from holding the ruck Garrett had given him. A genuine military pack, 20 pounds of sand. "SEALs carry 80, Garrett had said. "You'll work up to it." Week 4, Marcus from school joined him, then 2 other JROTC kids. By week 8, Travis was leading a group of 6 teenagers through pre-dawn runs while the neighborhood slept. The weight fell off. Not just physical pounds, the arrogance that had made him cruel, the entitlement that had made him think recording a 12-year-old's pain was entertainment. He'd watched that video exactly once after the incident, seen himself through Deputy Warren's eyes, heard his own voice taunting a scared kid whose only crime was telling the truth. He'd deleted his entire TikTok account that night, all 67 videos. Most of them were him showing off, flexing for girls, making jokes at other people's expense. Gone. His phone now contained only training logs and a single photo. Commander Vance's credential wallet photographed from Deputy Warren's hand. The NavSpec war badge catching light. That's what real looked like. Not his father's old stories, not patches and pins. The quiet competence of someone who'd proven everything and needed to prove nothing. He and Paige didn't become friends, but they could exist in the same hallway without tension. When they passed, there was a mutual nod. Acknowledgement, nothing more. In late May, Paige came home with a flyer. "School's doing a 5K fundraiser," she said, "for wounded veteran services. Travis is running it. He asked if we wanted to participate." Catherine looked at the flyer. "Do you want to?" Paige shrugged. "Maybe, if you run with me." "I can do that." They registered. The race was on a Saturday morning in early June. Warm but not hot. Clear skies. The course wound through the neighborhood around the school. 243 people participated. Parents, students, teachers, community members. Catherine and Paige ran together. Catherine could have finished in under 20 minutes easily, but she stayed with her daughter, matching her pace, encouraging her when the hills got steep. They crossed the finish line in 38 minutes, Paige breathing hard but smiling. Travis finished ahead of them, 26 minutes. He'd lost 30 pounds since March, built muscle, looked like a different person. After the race, there was a small ceremony. Principal Hayes spoke about the importance of supporting veterans, about how the school had learned hard lessons this year, about respect and verification and not making assumptions. He invited Catherine to say a few words. She hadn't prepared anything, but she stepped up to the microphone anyway. "My daughter told the truth," Catherine said, "and she was punished for it. Not by policy, but by people. People who couldn't imagine that truth looked different than what they expected." She paused, looked out at the crowd, saw Garrett and Victoria Brennan, saw Travis standing with the other JROTC kids, saw Paige sitting with Master Chief Cross. "The military taught me a lot of things. How to shoot, how to survive, how to lead under pressure. But the most important thing it taught me was this. Never assume you know someone's capability based on what they look like. Verify, test, observe, and if you're wrong, have the courage to admit it." She stepped back from the microphone. Brief applause. She didn't need more than that. After the ceremony, families dispersed. Catherine and Paige were walking back to their car when Travis approached. Garrett was with him, but hanging back again. "Miss Hartley," Travis said to Paige, "I just wanted to say thank you for running today. It means a lot that you participated." Paige nodded. "You ran really fast." "I've been training every morning. Your mom said Buds is about not quitting. I'm trying to learn what that means." Paige looked at her mother. Catherine gave a slight nod. Paige turned back to Travis. "I read your letter, the one you gave me." Travis's expression shifted, nervous. "Yeah. You said you were sorry, and that you're trying to be different." "I am. I really am." "Okay," Paige said. "I believe you." Travis looked like he'd been given something he didn't deserve. "Thank you." Paige walked to the car. Catherine lingered for just a moment. "Commander," Travis said, "I know I have a long way to go, but if I keep doing the work, if I qualify for Buds, someday would you write a letter of recommendation not for who I was, but for who I'm trying to become?" Catherine studied him. "You keep running, keep training, keep proving you've changed, and when you're ready to apply, we'll talk." His face broke into the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you." Catherine walked to her car. Paige was already buckled in. "You okay?" Catherine asked as she started the engine. "Yeah, I think so." "Proud of you." "For what?" "For giving him a chance. You didn't have to." Paige thought about that. "He's trying. That counts for something, right?" Catherine smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, it does." They drove home through late morning sunshine. The radio played something soft. Paige dozed in the passenger seat, and Catherine thought about how far they'd come since that night in March. Her daughter had learned that truth didn't need permission, that standing up meant standing alone sometimes, that forgiveness was possible but never required. And the people who doubted them had learned something too, that warriors came in forms they didn't expect, that assumptions could be dangerous, that respect was earned through demonstrated capability, not assigned through gender or tradition. It wasn't a perfect resolution. Travis still had years of work ahead of him. The school still had policies to implement and cultures to shift. And Paige would face other challenges, other moments where she'd have to defend her truth. But something fundamental had changed. They'd been heard, they'd been believed, and they'd been validated. Not because Catherine had yelled or threatened or demanded, but because she'd simply stood there, calm, capable, undeniable, and let the truth speak for itself. 6 months later in November, Lincoln Middle School held its Veterans Day assembly. The gymnasium was packed. Students filled the bleachers. Parents lined the walls. A color guard from the local Marine Corps base presented the colors. Catherine sat in the front row in her dress whites. Paige beside her in her best outfit. Master Chief Cross sat on Paige's other side. His old uniform pressed crisp, medals gleaming. Principal Hayes spoke first. About service, about sacrifice, about how the school had learned to honor both this year. Then he introduced Catherine. She walked to the podium, looked out at hundreds of faces. Some she knew, most she didn't. "I'm Commander Catherine Vance," she said. "United States Navy, 20 years of service, Naval Special Warfare." She paused. Let that sink in. "I'm not here to tell you war stories. I'm here to tell you what service actually means. It means showing up when it's hard. It means doing the right thing even when no one's watching. It means being willing to sacrifice for something bigger than yourself." She looked at Paige. "My daughter knows what service looks like because she lives it. Every deployment I miss her birthday. Every training cycle I miss her school events. Every time I come home exhausted and she helps me anyway. That's service too." She looked at the JROTC section. Travis sat in the front row, uniform perfect, at attention. Service means being willing to change, to admit when you're wrong, to become better than you were yesterday. Some of you in this room have learned that lesson this year, and that matters more than any medal I've ever been awarded. She stepped back from the podium. The gymnasium erupted in applause, not polite, genuine. Catherine returned to her seat. Paige reached over and squeezed her hand. After the assembly families gathered in the hallway, Catherine and Paige were heading toward the exit when Garrett approached. Victoria was with him. Both of them looked different than they had in March, less certain, more humble. "Commander," Garrett said, "thank you for speaking today." Catherine nodded. "Brennan." Victoria stepped forward. "I owe you an apology too. I was cruel to Paige. I said terrible things, and I'm sorry." Catherine looked at her. "Mrs. Brennan, apologies are a start, but they're just words unless they lead to change." "I know. I've been working with the PTA to establish a military family support program, resources for kids whose parents are deployed, counseling services. We should have had it years ago." Catherine's expression softened slightly. "That's good. That will help a lot of families." They stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then Travis appeared, in uniform, at attention. "Commander Vance," he said formally, "I wanted to inform you that I've submitted my application to the Naval Academy. Whether I'm accepted or not, I'll be enlisting after graduation. My goal is buds." Catherine studied him. 6 months of discipline showed. He'd lost the arrogance, gained humility. "You ready for that?" she asked. "No, ma'am, but I will be." "Then keep working." "Yes, ma'am." He started to leave, then turned back. "Miss Hartley, I got you something." He held out a small wrapped package. Paige took it hesitantly, unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a frame. The photo he'd torn in March. Paige's grandfather in his Navy uniform. Professionally restored. Better than the original. Paige stared at it. "You fixed it." "I can't undo what I did," Travis said, "but I could fix what I broke. Your grandfather served. That matters, and I'm sorry I disrespected it." Paige held the frame carefully. "Thank you." Travis nodded, walked away. Catherine and Paige left the school together. Master Chief Cross walked with them to the parking lot. "You did good in there," Cross said to Catherine. "Both of you." Catherine smiled. "We had a good teacher." Cross chuckled. "I just taught you how to shoot. You learned everything else yourself." They reached Catherine's car. Cross headed toward his truck. Catherine and Paige sat in the car for a moment before starting the engine. "Mom," Paige said. "Yeah." "Do you think people really change?" Catherine thought about that, about Garrett Brennan going from arrogant bully to humbled father, about Travis going from cruel teenager to disciplined cadet, about a school that went from discrimination to support. I think people can change if they choose to, Catherine said, but it takes work, real work, not just saying sorry, actually becoming different. Paige nodded, looked at the restored photo of her grandfather. I'm glad he fixed this. Me too. Catherine started the engine. They drove home through late afternoon light, the same route they'd driven 6 months ago after the worst night of Paige's young life. But everything was different now. Paige was stronger, more confident. She'd learned that truth was powerful even when it was questioned, that standing up meant standing alone sometimes, that forgiveness was possible but never required. And Catherine had learned something too, that silence could be more powerful than shouting, that demonstrated capability mattered more than defended ego, that the best way to prove someone wrong is to simply be undeniably right. They pulled into their apartment complex. Master Chief Cross's porch light was already on, waiting for them like always. They went inside. Their small apartment felt bigger somehow, safer, more like home. The restored photograph found its place on the mantel that night. Paige positioned it carefully between the images already there. Her grandfather's Navy portrait, her father's final SEAL photo, her mother's Bronze Star ceremony, a wall of warriors, a legacy of sacrifice, and one girl who finally understood what she was part of. Catherine made dinner. They ate together, talked about school, about the upcoming holidays, about normal things that felt precious because they were rare. Later, after Paige had gone to bed, Catherine stood on their small balcony, looking out at the distant lights of Coronado, where she'd trained, where she'd become someone she never imagined she could be. Her phone buzzed. Email from Principal Hayes. Subject, thank you. The message was brief. Commander, today's assembly has already generated requests from 3 other schools in the district. They want to know if you'd be willing to speak to their students too. No pressure, just wanted you to know the impact you made today. Catherine looked at the email for a long moment. Then she typed a simple reply. Send me the details. I'll make time. She put her phone away, looked out at the night sky. They'd kicked her daughter for telling the truth. But her daughter had stood up anyway. And now 6 months later, that truth was changing more than just one school, more than just one family. It was changing how people saw service, how they saw capability, how they saw women in uniform. Not because Catherine had demanded it, but because she'd simply shown up, been undeniable, and let the truth speak louder than any lie. The door behind her opened. Paige stepped out onto the balcony wrapped in a blanket. Can't sleep, Catherine asked. Paige shook her head. Just thinking. About what? About everything, about how different things are now. Catherine put an arm around her daughter. Better different or worse different. Paige thought about that. Better. Harder, but better. They stood there together, mother and daughter, warrior and witness. Mom, what? Paige said quietly. Yeah, I'm glad you're real. Catherine smiled, pulled her daughter closer. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. And in the quiet darkness of a California night, 2 people who'd been called liars stood together in undeniable truth, stronger for what they'd survived, ready for whatever came next. Because they'd learned the most important lesson of all. The truth doesn't need permission. It just needs someone brave enough to speak it, and someone strong enough to stand behind it. No matter what, the years would prove them right. Travis Brennan graduated from the Naval Academy in 2D28, made it through BUDS on his second attempt, became the operator his father once thought impossible for someone who'd started as a bully. Master Chief Dalton Cross passed peacefully in his sleep in 2026, age 73. His funeral drew 200 SEALs, including Catherine, who delivered the eulogy. Paige was 14. She wore her grandfather's Navy insignia pinned to her jacket. And Paige Hartley turned 18 in 2030. She'd grown tall, strong, confident. She applied to the Naval Academy with 3 letters of recommendation. One from Principal Hayes, one from Travis Brennan, now Lieutenant Junior Grade Brennan, SEAL Team 7, and one from her mother. Commander Catherine Widow Vance wrote 7 words in the subject line of that letter, "She's ready," because the truth made her strong. Paige was accepted. And on a warm September morning in Annapolis, Catherine stood in the crowd watching her daughter take the oath. The same oath she'd taken 22 years before. The same oath her husband had taken before he fell. 3 generations, one legacy, and the truth that needed no permission to exist.